leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests we have committed to our charge. Amen. From where I sit, I can see you have no quorum. That has been confirmed. So I request the bill to be long for 5 minutes.
All right, the Deputy Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Katuri Murungi, has just directed that the quorum bell be rung for 5 minutes to allow members of the Senate who are not yet in the chambers to be able to walk in for the House to attain its requisite number of members required to be in the House for the House business to kick off. So currently is a bell that will be on for 5 minutes, of course, for the members who are yet to get into the chambers to be able to walk in. So a motion on the institution of measures to curb incessant high electricity costs in Kenya by Honorable Senator Mohamed Chute is lined up for consideration on the floor of the Senate this afternoon. And the member will be seeking to have the Senate resolve that a standing committee on energy to undertake an inquiry into contracts signed by IPPS detailing the cost, capacity, and duration of the contractual agreements and their implications on affordability of electricity in the country. Also, the Senate will be required to resolve that the Standing Committee on Energy to undertake an inquiry into discrepancy in the cost of electricity sold to Kenya Power by Kenyan, imports from Ethiopia and IPPS, and as well as the diversion of the electricity generated by Lake Turkana wind power to the national grid, bypassing the inadequately supplied northern frontier counties of Marsabit and Samburu. The mover of this motion will also be seeking to have the Senate resolve that the Ministry of Energy comes up with a policy framework that will be aimed at lowering the cost of electricity as a way of addressing the high cost of living, and as well enhancing clean energy by switching to renewable sources of energy such as geothermal power, wind energy, among others, as a way of reducing the carbon footprint. This motion is lined up for consideration this afternoon once the House kicks off its business. Remember, what is happening currently is a quorum bell. The Deputy Speaker of the Senate has ordered that a quorum bell be rung to enable members to get into the chambers. And this is according to the standing orders that when the chair at the time of the beginning of or the commencement of House business, when the number or quorum that is required has not been achieved, then the chair or the speaker at that particular moment may order that the bell be rung for 10 minutes, then later 5 minutes. And if the quorum is not achieved, then the speaker may adjourn the sitting. So currently, as directed by the Deputy Speaker, is that the bell be rung for 5 minutes, of course, to allow members to get into the chambers. Members of the Senate will also this afternoon, once the House kicks off its business, is that they will be considering a motion by Honorable Senator Wahome Wamatingam and Honorable Senator Mohamed Faki on enhancing highway safety and convenience. This is a motion by the two members, and according to them is that 67% of road crash fatalities and injuries in the country comprises of the economically productive age groups of 15 to 65 years, and that the importance of good post-crash care reduces deaths and disability, and the suffering for road crash survivors creates the urgent need for effective emergency medical care system elements and processes on the highways. Also, the movers of this motion say that further aware that lives and properties are lost or irreparably damaged daily on major highways in the country due to accidents and explosion of fuel tankers, and the lack that is the majority party leader, Honorable Aaron Cheruyot, in the House, has just walked in, and the quorum bell is still on. Of course, members are expected to walk into the chambers to enable the House
ring again for 5 minutes.
And once the quorum is achieved,
and majority will approach
then
the chair.
Speaker can call the House to order and begin the business. But the quorum bell is still on. And on this motion by the two senators that talks about enhancing highway safety and convenience, this is a motion by Honorable Senator Wahome Wamatinga and Senator Mohamed Faki. They say that lives and properties are lost or irreparably damaged daily on major highways in the country due to accidents and explosion of fuel tankers, and the lack of accessible roadside amenities such as medical clinics, rescue centers, fire engines, and ambulances hamper efforts to mitigate the carnage caused by the accidents, rescue lives, and put out fires. They to also say cognizant that setting up safe stopping points for road users at regular intervals with the necessary roadside amenities such as fuel stations, parking spaces, restaurants, telephone booths, minor repair shops, medical facilities, and toilets enhances total travel experience, and the lack of these points make it impractical for drivers to stop as often as they would wish to, resulting into driving-related fatigue, a significant contributor to accidents on the highways. The two members, however, after, or rather in this particular motion, they will be seeking to have the Senate resolve that the Kenya National Highway Authority, in collaboration with the Council of Governors, to come up with a policy framework on the incorporation of road reserves for roadside amenities in all highway designs. Also, the Ministries of Health, Roads, Transport and Public Works, in conjunction with the Council of Governors, to undertake a survey to ascertain the specific amenities required but not available on the existing highways, such as satellite medical clinics, fire trucks and ambulances, and identify the most convenient locations to develop them. Again, the Ministry of Roads and Transport, in conjunction with the Council of Governors, to develop public-private partnerships, guideline on leasing of the road reserves to developers, financing the construction of the amenities, and the packaging of incentives to attract investors. Those are just some of the resolutions that the movers of this motion will be seeking to attain. And of course, the Senate to resolve a number of issues, including these three that I have just highlighted. currently, though, is a quorum bell. Members are yet to walk into the chambers. Remember, according to the standing orders, is that the House requires a requisite number for the House to start its business. Currently, that number has not been achieved, and it is a directive from the Speaker that the bell be rung. The House needs a total of 15 members to be in the chambers to enable it start its business. But before then, what we have now is a quorum bell. I can see Mandera Senator, Honorable Ali Roba there, but members are still expected to get into the chambers if the House business is to. Remember, if the quorum is not achieved, then according to the standing orders, the Speaker can adjourn the House, but hopefully the 15-member quorum will be achieved for the senators or for the House business to kick off this afternoon. The Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill. This is a bill that is originating from the Senate. It is a bill by Honorable Senator Danson Mungatana. Is lined up for second reading. Also, the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, a bill originating from the Senate, Bill number 6 of 2022, is also lined up for second reading. The House is still waiting for the quorum to be achieved. We are hopeful that members will be able to walk in. Remember, House business starts at 2:30. It is now 2:45, and the number has not been achieved, but of course we will be waiting for the direction from the Speaker, who is chairing the proceedings of this afternoon, on whether the House will continue with its business or perhaps adjourn due to lack of a quorum. 15 members are required to walk into the chambers or be seated at the commencement of the House. I can see Honorable Senator Samson Cherargei is in the chambers. And of course, the quorum bell is still on. Members are expected to walk in as directed by the Deputy Speaker, who has ordered for the bell to be rung. This is a quorum bell. And the order paper is heavy. There is a lot of business that they will be expected to consider. 4 motions and 4 bills that are lined up for second reading. The Preservation of Human Dignity and Enforcement of Economic and Social Rights Bill, originating from the Senate. This is Senate Bill number 7 of 2022 by Honorable Danson Mungatana, is part of the bills that are lined up for second reading. There is also the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill. This is also by Tana River Senator Honorable Danson Mungatana. These are bills that have been lined up for second reading. And once the House kicks off its business, then these bills will be read for the second time. The Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Bill by Honorable Danson Mungatana seeks to amend the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act 2017 to allow the Speaker of the House of Parliament to designate a member to chair the Committee of Powers and Privileges in his or her absence, and to prescribe categories of members and qualifications that may inform each house in selecting members to serve in the committee. So, as you can see, Senator Cherargei is counting to see whether the number has been achieved, and he is indicating there that 3 more senators are needed to achieve the number, 15 members. If the number will be achieved, then the House business can start, but the quorum bell is still on, and it will be on until the quorum is achieved if the House is to begin its business. And this is according to the standing orders. And once the quorum is achieved, then the members can start. Then members can start the House business. But what we are seeing is that the quorum bell is still on, and members are also yet to take up their seats. The privileges, the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill by Honorable Senator Adanson Mungatana is a bill that seeks to ensure that feedback on Parliament's resolutions and reports is not only given, but given in a timely manner, as delays or failure to submit reports undermine the ability of Parliament to undertake its oversight. So the quorum must have been achieved now. As you can see, members are taking up their seats. I will now hand you over for this live broadcast brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Good afternoon.
Administration of oath.
Next order.
Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Next order. Later. Honorable Senators, in the public gallery we have this is a communication concerning visiting teachers and students from Kahawa Garrison Secondary School, Nairobi City County. In the public gallery we have 92 students accompanied by 4 teachers from Kahawa Garrison Secondary School in Nairobi City County, who are in the Senate on education tour. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. Nairobi Senator. Yeah, please do majority read. Recognize those students.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ningetaka kuchukua fursa hii kuwakaribisha sana wanafunzi kutoka hii kaunti yetu nzuri ya Nairobi. Mumefanya jambo la hekima sana kutembea katika bunge letu la Seneti leo. Tunafurahia kuwa nanyi, na ningetaka kuwaeleza ya kwamba masomo ndio kitu ambacho mzazi anaweza kupa, ambacho hakuna yeyote ambaye anaweza kuchukua kutoka kwako. Mafunzo mnayopewa muyaeke kwa hali inayofaa. Mambo mengi yamekuwa sasa katika teknolojia tofauti. Nazidi kuwaomba muweze kufuata yale wazazi wanawaeleza, yale walimu wanawafunza, muweze kuwa viongozi bora kama pia sisi. Chochote kisije kikaja wafungia ndoto zenyu, mzidi kuweka bidii katika maisha na mtakuwa bora, kwa sababu hata sisi tulio hapa tulianzia hapo mlipoanzia na tukaeka ile bidii ambayo inayofaa, na Mungu pia tukamweka mbele, na hapa ndipo tupo leo, na Mungu wabariki sana. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. There are a few requests. I don't know whether it is on the same matter. Senator Ososi. Senator Mahanzo Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's always a pleasure for students to learn from us, to be role modeled by us, and every time we have visitors, we look forward to invite them, to welcome them, and follow the proceedings. I encourage those young children one day to become senators. There's a president of America who became a president because when he was a student, visited the Capitol Hill, and one day the Congress, and one day became the president of America. I wish them very well, and I encourage them to work hard so that one day they can sit here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, next one.
Order number 3, messages.
Next order.
Order number 4, petitions.
Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay on the following paper on the table of the Senate today, the 23rd February 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is the report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the 145th Assembly and related meetings of the Interparliamentary Union IPU held from 11th to 15th of October 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay.
Okay, Vice Chair. Parliamentary Service Commission.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay on the 23rd February 2023 this paper I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate, the annual report of the Parliamentary Service Commission for the financial year 2021-2022. I beg to lay.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Enoch Wambua, you have the motion under your name on drought mitigation program in public schools.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to give notice of motion. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. Aware that Kenya is experiencing the most intense severe and alarming drought in 40 years as a result of the failure of 4 consecutive rain seasons, affecting more than 20 counties in arid and semi-arid lands. Further aware that more than 4.2 million people, representing 24% of the arid and semi-arid lands population, are facing high levels of acute food insecurity, with about 2.7 million in crisis phase and 785,000 people in emergency state, noting that the national and county governments, both local and international development partners, and philanthropists have made attempts to respond to the dire situation occasioned by the severe drought, concerned that thousands of children did not attend school during the 3rd term of the academic year 2022 and beginning of 2023 as a result of the ongoing drought. Now, therefore, the Senate urges, 1, the Ministry of East African Community, the ASOS and Regional Development to develop immediate and long-term interventions to alleviate the ravaging effects of drought and hunger periodically affecting the country and more severely the ASOL areas. 2, the Ministry of Education. And the Speaker, this is important, that the Ministry of Education, in conjunction with the Council of Governors, to establish modalities to ensure no learners are sent away from schools due to lack of school fees, to ensure that children from vulnerable families have access to education. And 3, the Ministry of Education, in conjunction with the Council of Governors, to implement effective school feeding programs to ensure that children from vulnerable families in drought-hit regions have access to at least 1 hot meal per day and that no child misses class due to lack of food. The Speaker, I beg to give the notice of motion.
Next is Senator Kavindu. Senator Agnes Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to lay my motion before this Senate. Compensation to the Kenyan victims of 1998 bombing of the United States Embassy in Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, I lay to give notice to the following motions: that aware that disaster is defined as an overwhelming event and circumstance that tests the adaptation of response of the community and individuals beyond their capability and leads momentarily to massive disruption of functions for the community and individuals that often exceed their capability to cope with using existing resources. Further aware that such was the case in the 1998 US Embassy bomb disaster in Nairobi, in which many of the Kenyan casualties resulted from the collapse of an adjacent building located within a 2 to 3 blocks radius, and with reverberation being felt by most parts of the Nairobi that resulted to 213 Kenyans and 12 Americans killed and over 500 citizens of both countries being seriously injured, noting that US allies, including Kenya, have endured a great burden of death and long-term and in many instances, permanent physical and psychological injury. Further noting that the United States government has since compensated some of the victims and families of US citizens, leaving families of Kenyan citizens and certain other victims uncompensated. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, one, advance a friendship with cooperation between the United States and the Kenyan by supporting the eligibility of Kenyan and American victims and their personal representatives, surviving spouses, and next of kin in the Victim Compensation Fund pursuant to the Justice for United States, victims of United States-sponsored terrorist acts, and two, partner with the Ministry of Health and explore subsidized medical treatment for the surviving victims of the bomb blast. Mr. Speaker, sir, this issue...
that's enough for now, because you
okay, Mr. Speaker, but this issue has taken 24 years.
Yeah.
And so I pray and I plead with you, where you take it, they take it with so seriousness, yes, and act on it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. The next is Senator Danson Mungatana. You have a motion. You give notice of your motion on the record of proceedings of the first ordinary session of the 6th Parliament of Pan-African Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that the Senate notes the record of the proceedings of the first ordinary session of the 6th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament held in Gallagher Convention Center, Midrand, South Africa on the 23rd October to 12th November 2022, laid on the table of the Senate on the
2023
Thursday.
For record purpose.
2023, yes.
Oh, no, 2022. You are
it should be 2022.
You are right,
Mr.
sorry, Senator Mgatana.
Laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 16th February 2023. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Majority Whip, Senator Boni Karwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That the Senate notes the report of the parliamentary delegation of Kenya to the 145th Assembly and related meetings of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, held on the 11th to the 15th of October 2022 in Kigali, Rwanda, which was laid on this table of the Senate today on Thursday, 23rd February 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
We have a couple of statements. We start with the Senator Professor Tom Odhiambo Jenda, Senator for Kisumu County.
Mr. Speaker,
if my record is ready to have 3 statements.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have three statements. The first statement is on the misuse of arms by Kenya Wildlife in Kisumu County, KWS.
For Nita work, start with the one on the misuse of firearms.
Misuse of firearms.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise under Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the misuse of firearms by officers of KWS in Kisumu County. In this statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should, 1, investigate the circumstances leading to the injury of one Byron Ochieng Alango, ID number 395-38206, who was allegedly shot by Kenya Wildlife Service Rangers on 26th December 2022 at Mamboleo Junction in Kisumu County. Secondly, to state the measures put in place to regulate the use of firearms by Kenya Wildlife Service officers in civilian areas in order to prevent misuse of firearms by KWS officers. Thirdly, to investigate the current state of insecurity in Kisumu County estates, stating the nature of insecurity case, perpetrators, and action taken by the security apparatus in Kisumu County. And lastly, to inform the Senate of measures, if any, to compensate victims of excesses by KWS officers and other armed security agencies, as well as preventive measures to avoid future occurrences of misuse of government firearms. Mr. Speaker, that is the first statement.
The second one.
The second statement is on the construction of Koru Soin Dam. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the status of construction of Koru Soin Dam following the compulsory acquisition by the government of the land for the construction of the said dam several years ago. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should explain the progress made towards the construction of Koru Soin Dam, whose construction was meant to help stem the flood menace often experienced by residents of Nyando in Kisumu County. Secondly, to state whether there is any budgetary allocation towards the construction of the dam in the current financial year and whether there are plans to prioritize the construction of the said dam. Thirdly, to outline measures put in place by the national government, if any, to compensate the owners of land that was compulsorily acquired for the purposes of construction of the dam, and whether the government and the residents have reached an agreement on the amount of compensation to be paid to landowners, and whether there's a budgetary allocation towards the said compensation of the residents. And lastly, to elucidate the extent to which the people of Kisumu County will benefit from the said project. Mr. Speaker, sir, my last statement is on the threat to human, wildlife, and destruction of farm crops by hippopotamus in the paddy fields of West Kano Irrigation Scheme in Kisumu County, a current menace, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources concerning the threat to human life and destruction of farm crops by hippopotami in the paddy fields of West Kano Irrigation Scheme in Kisumu County. In the statement, the committee should explain measures, if any, put in place by the national government and the county government of Kisumu to prevent the destruction of farm crops in West Kano by hippos, as well as address the threat to human life caused by wild animals. Secondly, to state the assistance extended to farmers and residents of West Kano to enhance their knowledge in dealing with human-wildlife conflict, including fencing their farms as a deterrent measures against the hippos, and lastly, to list all reported cases of human-wildlife conflict occasioned by hippos in West Kano rice fields since 2022 to date, stating the remedial measures taken, including compensation of farmers and families of those killed or maimed by hippos. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a current problem, and only last week, 2 members of one family were killed by hippopotamus in these rice fields. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. The 3 statements to be considered by the relevant committees. Senator Edwin Sifuna, Nairobi Senator.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding allegations of a plan by the Ministry of Health to restrict unemployed Kenyan health workers from seeking jobs abroad. In the statement, the committee should address the following. Number one, investigate allegations of the existence of a workforce migration policy by the Ministry of Health through which there are plans or reported plans to restrict qualified unemployed Kenyan health workers from seeking work abroad. Number two, state whether, in developing the said policy, the Ministry of Health complied with Article 10(2)(b) and C and Article 232(1)(b), D and I of the Constitution, with specific reference to equity, social justice, non-discrimination, and involvement of the public during the development of this policy. Number three, explain the rationale for such a policy, given the state of the Kenyan labor market and in light of the plight of the thousands of qualified but unemployed health workers, stating whether what the ministry is doing to ensure that all qualified but unemployed doctors in the country are being employed expeditiously. And finally, Mr. Speaker, outline the measures that have been put in place by the Ministry of Health, if any, to revise and upgrade the remuneration and healthcare of healthcare practitioners to ensure a fair and conducive working environment. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. What is out of order?
Speaker, I beg to seek further clarification on that statement, with your permission.
Yes, proceed.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Senator Sifuna. Could also the statement include a confirmation that the government intends to deny the non-practice allowance that is paid to doctors who work in public hospitals, clinical officers who work in public hospitals, to cushion them from the fact that during the time they are working in public practice, they don't enjoy the opportunity to benefit from their skills by doing private medical practice. Mr. Speaker, because this is a cross-cutting issue, let them just top it up by also confirming that the same non-practicing allowance for judges and magistrates is also going to be scrapped. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I can see several requests on this statement. Majority Leader.
It's not on this statement per se.
Comments by the Majority Whip. Standing Order number 104. A senator who wishes to speak on any matter in which the senator has pecuniary or proprietary interest shall first declare that interest. Senator Boni Alwale is a practicing gynecologist, Mr. Speaker. While making his comments about this particular topic, I thought it would be in order, Mr. Speaker, to declare publicly that he has a personal interest in this matter, either now or in the future, should the people of Kakamega rethink the endorsement of him being here, Mr. Speaker. So can you put the senator for Kakamega in order, Mr. Speaker, and ask him to properly address this House on that particular matter?
Majority Leader, he should do that because what he said is that the government wants to stop the non-practicing allowance. I don't know whether he is also maybe interested to be paid by the Parliamentary Service Commission. Senator Mboni Karwale and Dr.
Mr. Speaker, our Majority Leader is perfectly right. But he should have started by asking me to define what non-practicing allowance is. Non-practicing allowance, Mr. Speaker, is not paid to doctors in private practice. It is paid to doctors in the civil service. Mr. Speaker, I left the civil service when the leader of the majority was in kindergarten. And that is the last time I enjoyed that non-practicing allowance, Mr.
Which
Speaker.
year was that, Senator Mboni Karwale? Which year was that?
Mr. Speaker, because of the peculiar interests of the younger members of the fair sex, let me not disclose my age. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is very important so that the country is on the same page. Currently, if a doctor is working in a public hospital, he is paid 35,000 shillings. Clinical officer is paid 20,000 shillings. A judge is paid 20,000 shillings. A magistrate is paid 15,000. This cushions them from the fact that their colleagues make more money from the profession. It cushions them to the extent that they are not attracted to go into private practice at the expense of the poor members of the public who cannot afford our fees, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the part of the judges and magistrates, you can imagine if a judge, because he's looking for money, he was to go and take instructions from a client, and later on in the day, in the fullness of time, the same client appears to him as a judge. So we're supposed to cushion them so that they don't come. There is confusion. People think that the doctors are looking for the 20,000 shillings, 35,000 shillings. 35,000 shillings to a doctor is peanuts. When you carry out one operation, Mr. Speaker, we make, as you know, all of you get our fees, between 50 and 200,000 shillings for an operation of 1 hour. So when we sacrifice, we don't go for those operations and take care of your families, give us the 35,000 shillings so that we can buy some little presents for our children and, in my case, my grandchildren, Mr. Speaker.
You want to make a comment on the statement? Now 2 minutes each, if any comment to the statement. The time you take from your seat to the dispatch box is 30 seconds.
My comment is only 1 minute, Mr. Speaker. Mine is just further clarification. I know that we need to know, Mr. Speaker, why that direction was given where doctors are not allowed to travel. Number two, the number of doctors in the country that are supposed or have qualified, yet they are not employed in the country. And finally, Mr. Speaker, you remember there was a collaboration between county governments and the famous Cuban doctors. So what is the position? Because I thought there was also a collaboration where the Cuban doctors were working within our county hospitals, and then at that time the Ministry of Labor started a collaboration with the British government on how they were taking nurses to the Britain to continue and work there. So if those clarifications can be clarified, Mr. Speaker, then we shall be able to put that matter to rest. Thank you.
Senator Ososi, is it on this? You know, your account has been on for quite some time, so I'm getting confused.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to speak to the next matter, but
let me give now another. You want to speak still?
Yeah, I can speak on this matter.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, I think I must thank my colleague here, the Senator for Nairobi, for bringing up this matter, because most of us were shocked to read in the media that over 4,000 doctors are unemployed, and yet the government has spent a lot of resources to train these doctors, and these doctors are not allowed to seek jobs elsewhere. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious issue, considering the shortage of medical staff in our hospitals. We cannot be having doctors who are trained, not able to work or not able to travel. It is really a serious matter. So I think the statement by Senator Sifuna should be taken seriously. by the Committee of Health and a report brought to this House so that we discuss this matter, because this is a matter of national concern, and it is going to discourage young people from taking serious courses like medicine, which require a lot of concentration, a lot of investment, and then after the course, you end up not getting the job or not being able to travel out of the country. I think that is a draconian rule by this government, which the Committee of Health must seek to ensure that that rule is stopped henceforth. Mr. Speaker, allow me to also comment on the statements that we give in this House. I am concerned that every time we come to this House, members are requesting an average of about 5 to 6 statements a day. But committees are not moving with speed to process these statements. Mr. Speaker, I did my statements, my 2 statements, last year. To date, I am waiting for the first communication from the committee to tell me when they are inviting the relevant people to come and respond to the issues. So yes, we are giving out, making requests, but the committees should work aggressively so that these statements are responded to in time. And Mr. Speaker, you know you are the chair of the liaison committee. You need to call your members to order and ensure that our contribution in this House in terms of requests for statement is not in vain.
Thank you, Senator Ososi. Senator David Wakoli.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Ningependa kuchangia kwa yale ambayo mwenzangu Senator wa Nairobi ametaja kwamba kwa usanjari huo kuhusiana na mkataba wa madaktari na mishahara yao ni kinaya na kejeli kwamba serikali ina mkataba na wahudumu madaktari kutoka Cuba ambao kwa mwezi mmoja daktari mmoja anatukamua sisi wa Kenya $1,000,000 kwa mwezi. Ili hali madaktari wenye tajriba kama hiyo Kenya humu hawana kazi, wanapiga miayo na hawaruhusiwi kutafuta kazi katika nchi za kigeni. Ninaomba hivi, itawezekana kwamba hawa wa Cuba warudishwe kwao na hizi pesa wanazolipwa zitumike kuajiri madaktari hapa Kenya? Hoja ya pili, kuna wale madaktari mashinani, kwa kimombo tunawaita CHVs, ambao wanafanya kazi butu, kazi nzito kule mashinani. Itawezekana vile vile wao wawezeshwe kuhusishwa na wapate mishahara ili kunufaisha wa Kenya katika nyanja za mashinani? Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Yes, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, sorry to interrupt the flow of program, but I wish to draw to your attention that we have a very important business on item number 8. With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I want to request that this is a long-established tradition of the House that whenever we have such pressing matters, we can pause a debate on any particular matter, dispense off with it. It's only one vote that we are taking. This should not ordinarily take us more than 5 minutes. We send this money to our counties and we revert back to the order that was going on. With your permission, Mr. Speaker.
If honorable senators could minimize requests to make comments on the statements, then we can leave the following, maybe 3 or 4 statements, then we clear. Honorable senators, We have our visiting teachers and students from Sabis International School, Nairobi City County. In the public gallery, we have 22 students accompanied by 8 teachers from Sabis International School in Nairobi City County who are in the Senate on an education tour. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. On this one, let us give, there is a request from Senator Tabitha Mutinda. Just 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Why it's a special request? These are children from the Sabis International School in Runda. These are my good, very kids who requested to come to this house. I want to ask you to continue pursuing your educational goals. As I always say, education is the only thing that your parent can always give you, and that is what somebody can never ever take away from you. I wish you the best. I know you are in one of the best schools in this country. Do not take advantage because you get what maybe your parents can be able to provide. I'll also urge you to continue visiting other schools that might not have the facilities that you have, so that you're able to understand what this country offers. You are our future leaders. As here we are, we've walked an education journey. I urge you, I request you, I humbly ask you to shine in your education. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator for Nairobi County.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Probably for the benefit of students in the gallery, the Nairobi delegation is quite healthy. We have 1 elected senator in Nairobi, but we have at least 5 nominated senators who come from the Nairobi county, and therefore they form part of the delegation. Senator Mutinda, who spoke before me, is one of the members of the delegation in Nairobi. So if she has taken the opportunity to welcome you, please consider that to be the same position that I will take in welcoming you to this house. I hope that you can learn something from your tour today, and that you are proud of the representation you have in the Senate, especially for your teachers. Those who voted for me, I want to say thank you very much, and enjoy your time here in the Senate. Asante sana.
Yes, Senator Kajwang, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, is Senator Sifuna in order to purport that Sabis International School Runda lies in Nairobi County when the boundaries are so clear that Sabis lies in Kiambu County? And Mr. Speaker, I say this with authority because that is my neighborhood. And Mr. Speaker, in as much as I want to say I live in Nairobi, in as much as I want to say I live in Nairobi, the reality is that I live in Kiambu. So the senator who should be inviting the ladies and gentlemen from Sabis, Mr. Speaker, should be the senator for Kiambu, not the senator for Nairobi. And the senator for Nairobi should know where he gets his votes from. Beyond Githogoro, Mr. Speaker, Senator Sifuna has no further votes. After Githogoro, the votes are for Kiambu.
Senator Kajwang, now that we know those are your neighbors, kindly now welcome them on behalf of the senator for, for Kiambu, who is not in the house.
Mr. Speaker, as a resident of Kiambu County, I'd like to welcome the delegation from Sabis International School Runda. Mr. Speaker, it's a school that I'm very well familiar with because I've previously taken my son there for an interview. And Mr. Speaker, in as much as he was admitted to join Sabis, we were just not able to afford the fees. So that tells you how a choice of school it is. But Mr. Speaker, I am extremely and immensely proud of the students from Sabis who I see in my neighborhood and who are friends of my children, and even the staff of Sabis. Mr. Speaker, even the entrepreneurs because before coming to this house, I was in the financial services sector, and I was in a group of company where Centum was part of it. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate the entrepreneurs who partnered to bring this world-class school to Kenya, to bring it to Kiambu County, and I do believe we tend to ask ourselves, Mr. Speaker, actually, if you do a poll in here, and you ask yourself who went to an international school, you keep asking yourself, where do they usually end up? Mr. Speaker, I know you went to some rural DEB school, primary and secondary. Mr. Speaker, the senator for Uasin Gishu must have gone to some local school barefoot. So I want to encourage the children at service that the job that we do is not a dirty job. It is a job that you can do having come through an international school. And we need more enlightened and woke people in this house. And I hope that many of you or some of you will find their way into this house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, the Senate for Kisumu County has approached the chair that somehow he thinks that some of his children are in this house, in the gallery. Or you still also, you live...
Mr. Speaker, I have 3 children in service school. 3. So I think these are classmates. Yes, from one mother. So let me just welcome. I have Chrissy, I have Ruby, I have the little one. So welcome to the House, to Senate. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I think it is important at every point that when students visit Senate, they need to understand the bicameral nature of Parliament. They need to understand that it is important that at any point in learning, the lower levels and the higher levels, that they must aspire for the best. And that there's only room at the top. And when they come to the top at there now, you're actually physically at the top, aspire to remain there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Senators, as requested by the majority leader and the leadership of the House, there are a few other statements that I'm maybe suspending for a few minutes. We first dispense off with the business appearing in order number 8 on the order paper, and then we'll come back to the statements, and then we proceed in that manner. Thank you.
Order number 8, motion, adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the county government's additional allocations cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2022-2023. Division.
Division bill to belong for 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay, now lock the doors and then you draw the bar. Honorable Senators, Honorable Senators, I put the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the county government's additional allocations cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2022-2023, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 16th February 2023, and that pursuant to Section 17(7) of the Public Finance Management Act and Standing Order 1893, the Senate approves the county government's additional allocations cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2022-2023. Senators, we are voting electronically. Confirm whether the system is okay. Where is our technical team? Can you advise us whether... Okay. Honorable Senators, it's like this system is not working. So we can go the manual way. You can use the local. Yes. Yes, the House leadership can give us, tell us. One each from either side. Senator Chimera. And Senator Eddie. Yes, let's proceed.
Senator Abbas Sheikh Mohammed, Wajir County. Senator Adan Dulo Fatuma, Isiolo County.
Go the vote from Senator Duro. Yes, Senator Duro, let's take your vote again. Wait, just a minute. Mike, wait for the mic.
I vote yes, Mr. Speaker. I can see people are excited.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Senator Cherarke Samson, Nandi County.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the great people of Nandi, I vote yes.
Senator Cheriot Aaron Kipkirui, Kericho County.
Okay, I can use this other one. Mr. Speaker, I vote yes.
Senator Chesang Alan Kiprotich, Trans Nzoia County. Senator Chute Mohammed Said, Marsabit County.
I vote yes.
Senator Ikomwa James Lomenen, Turkana County.
No, senators, you have no power to vote on behalf of your colleagues.
Senator Haji Abdul Mohammed, Garissa County. Senator Kajwang Moses Otieno, Homa Bay County.
No.
I'm here. I vote yes.
Senator Kajwang Moses Otieno, Homa Bay County.
I vote yes.
Senator Kamau Joseph Githuku, Lamu County. Senator Kathuri Murungi, Meru County.
I vote yes.
Senator Keroche Tabitha Karanja, Nakuru County. Senator Halwale Boni, Kakamega County.
I vote yes.
Senator Kipkorir William Cheptumo, Baringo County.
I vote yes.
Senator Kisang William Kipkemoi, Elgeyo Marakwet County.
I vote yes.
Senator Lelegwe Steve Tumbesi, Samburu County.
I vote yes.
Senator Manzo Daniel Kitonga, Makwiny County.
On behalf of the great people of Makwiny, I vote yes.
Senator Madzayo Stewart Mwachiru, Kilifi County.
I vote yes.
Senator Mandago Jackson Kiplagat, Wasingishu County.
Mr. Speaker,
Senator...
Sorry, repeat the vote. Senator Mandago.
Mr. Speaker, I vote yes.
Senator Methu John Muhia, Nyandarua County.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I vote yes.
Senator Mogeni Eric Okongo, Nyamira County.
Mr. Speaker, I vote yes.
Senator Mundigi Alexander, Munyi, Embu County. Senator Mungatana Danson Buya, Tana River County.
Tana River votes yes, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Murango James Kamau, Kirinyaga County. Senator Mudhama Agnes Kavindu, Machakos County.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of Machakos people, I vote yes.
Senator Mwaruma Jones Mwashushe, Taita Taveta County.
Mr. Speaker, I vote yes.
Senator Mwenda Gataya Mofaya, Tharaka-Nithi County. Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki, Mombasa County. Senator Ndiritu John Kinywa, Laikipia County. Senator Ngugi Joe Joseph Nyuto, Murang'a County. Senator Ojienda Odhiambo Tom, Kisumu County.
Mr. Speaker, because the people of Kisumu need these funds, I will vote yes.
Senator Oginga Oburu, Siaya County. Senator Okech Eddie Gicheru.
Let's get the vote from the senior. Give him the mic.
One has come. Okay, Mr. Speaker, sir, Siaya votes yes.
Senator Okech Eddie Gicheru, Migori County.
Mr. Speaker, Migori votes yes.
Senator Okoiti Andrew Mtata, Busia County.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I vote yes.
Senator Olekina Ledama, Narok County.
Mr. Speaker, I vote yes to send 110 million shillings to Narok County as additional revenue.
Senator Onyonka Richard Momoina, Kisii County.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the great people of Kisii, I vote yes. And a point of order, Mr. Speaker, my name is Richard Momoima, not Momoina. Momoima. The difference is Momoima means he's the only son, which I am. The other one has no meaning.
Next vote. He has already voted. Next.
Senator Osotsi Godfrey Atieno, Vihiga County.
Mr. Speaker, I vote yes.
Senator Recha Julius Murgo, West Pokot County. Senator Roba Ali Ibrahim, Mandera County.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I vote yes.
Senator Seki Lenku Olekanar, Kajiado County.
Mr. Speaker, I vote yes.
Senator Sifuna Edwin Watenya, Nairobi County.
Mr. Speaker, I vote yes.
Senator Thangwa Paul Karungo, Kiambu County. Senator Wafula David Wakoli, Bungoma County.
Mr. Speaker, kwa niaba ya wazalendo wa kaunti ya Bungoma, napiga ndio.
Senator Wakili Hillary Kiprotich Sigei, Bomet County. Senator Wamatinga Wahome, Nyeri County. Senator Wambua Enoch Kio, Kitui County.
The Speaker, for and on behalf of the people of Kitui County, I vote yes.
Yes, you can learn through again if to check whether there is someone who has not voted.
Senator Abbas Sheikh Mohammed, Wajir County. Senator Boy Issa Juma, Kwale County.
Mr. Speaker, Kwale County, vote yes.
Senator Chesang Alan Kiprotich, Trans Nzoia County. Senator Ekomwa James Lomenen, Turkana County. Senator Kamau Joseph Githuku, Lamu County. Senator Keroche Tabitha Karanja, Nakuru County. Senator Mundigi Alexander Munyi, Embu County. Senator Murango James Kamau, Kirinyaga County. Senator Mwenda Gataya Mofaya, Tharaka Nithi County. Senator Mwinyihaji Mohamed Faki, Mombasa County. Senator Nderitu John Kinywa, Laikipia County. Senator Ngugi Joe Joseph Nyutu, Muranga County. Senator Recha Julius Murgo, West Pokot County. Senator Thangwa Paul Karungo, Kiambu County. Senator Wakili Hilary Kiprotich, Sigei, Bomet County. Senator Wamatinga Wahome, Nyeri County.
Okay, the chair now has the results, and I hope there will be no asking me to open the server. Senator Bendu. The results are ayes 32 and no 0, and no 0 abstentions. So the ayes have it. Yes, do the bars and open the doors. Now let's go to the previous zone again. We clear the statements. Now you get the statement from Senator Mohamed Chute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Requesting for a statement
on non-remittance of statutory deductions from the staff of the county government of Marsabit to the National Hospital Insurance Fund, National Social Security Fund, and LAB Fund. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from a standing committee on labor and social welfare. This is on non-remittance of statutory deductions from the staff of the county government of Marsabit to the National Hospital Insurance Fund, National Social Security Fund, and LAF Fund by the county government of Marsabit. In the statement, the committee should, 1, report on the status of NHIF, NSSF, LAP Fund, and loan deductions from the staff of Marsabit County and subsequent remittances to NHIF, NSSF, and LAP Fund. 2, state why the county government of Marsabit has failed to remit the statutory deductions despite deducting the same from the staff, and inform the Senate on actions that has been taken against the staff responsible for this failure. Number 3, elucidate on the measures, if any, the ministry has undertaken to mitigate against such incidences where county governments do not remit statutory deductions so as to avert future health crises. Number 4, state the number of advisors, their status, full names, dates appointed, core duties, and salaries directly employed under the governor's office. And finally, provide status of gratuity remittances for CEOs, CECs, Public Service Board members, and the County Assembly members, detailing what is outstanding yet to be remitted and actions to be taken against the officers responsible for failure of timely remittances. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next, Senator for Nandi County, Samson Chelagay.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Request for statement on the reintroduction of bank charges on mobile wallets. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding the reintroduction of bank charges on the mobile wallets such as M-Pesa, Airtel Money, and T-Cash. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain reasons for failure by the Central Bank of Kenya to set a standard fee to be charged on mobile wallets by all banks to avert exploitation meted on the Kenyans by commercial banks across the country. Mr. Speaker, number 2, provide the current rates charged on mobile wallets per transaction in the process of moving funds to and from the bank, excluding the 20% excise duty charged by the government and the state actions, if any, to be taken against banks that fail to disclose the amounts charged through this transaction. Mr. Speaker, and finally, outline measures, if any, put in place by the National Treasury to cushion Kenyans against exploitation by commercial banks with respect to charges on mobile money transactions, considering, Mr. Speaker, the current hard economic times and noting that Kenya's shillings 10 billion that is transacted on an average per day via mobile money transactions, be it M-Pesa, Airtel Money, or T-Cash, and make it a key driver of the economy. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'll give comments at the end of the next 3 statements, then we consolidate the comments. Next is Senator Christo Asige. You had a statement to make.
Not Chair. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't aware that my statement was in today's order paper. Kindly excuse me and allow me to read it in the next session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Senator Aminda Kibwana. Senator Tabitha Mutinda. Okay, all those 3 statements has been deferred till the next sitting. Yes, I want to give at least 2 comments from both sides. Senator Kisang William.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to make comments on the last 3. One is, Honorable Speaker, by the time employees are paid, they get paid their gross salary, which includes pay as you earn, which is a statutory deduction, NSSF, NHIF, and pension deduction, is part of the salary. So we don't see the reason why the county government of Marsabit and others are not remitting these statutory deductions. Honorable Speaker, we need to compel these counties to pay, and also pay including the penalties, because I know NHIF charge almost 2.5% penalties. The employees are not enjoying, they'll not enjoy interest on non-remitted pension or NSSF. Honorable Speaker, this is a serious matter that we need to look at and invite the governors to tell us why they're not remitting. Honorable Speaker, on the second, by the Senator for Nandi County, Honorable Speaker, Kenyans are going through very difficult economic times. And I don't know why Central Bank decided to reintroduce interest on wallet money. So we need, Honorable Speaker, that they go back, because Kenyans are still suffering from what happened during the COVID times. We need them to rescind the decision so that we go back where we were 2 years ago. Finally, Honorable Speaker, on doctors, I know we had made comments on Ministry of Health from denying our doctors who are not employed from going out of the country. Doctors, like any other profession, when they go to the university, they take loan and they sponsor themselves. Others are sponsored by their parents, or they take higher education loans board and they go to school like everybody else. So what is so special to deny them from traveling and looking for opportunities so that they can start paying help loan, they can help their families? If the ministry want to deny them from traveling and looking for opportunities, then it is time that they employ all doctors who have graduated, who have been licensed, so that they don't suffer staying within the country and doing nothing, and they have gone to school. And you know, these are the top, they were our top students in KCSE. So what are we telling those who are in class 8, who are in high school, and they intend to pursue medicine? If we stop them from looking for opportunities to help themselves and help their families, what will happen? So, Honorable Speaker, we need to ask the ministry to rescind the decision. Thank you.
Senator Cheptumo. Senator Lenku, Sekirenku, Olekanar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise also to support the motion on the statement from Mheshimiwa Senator from Marsabit on the issue of non-remittance of staff, non-remittance of staff. I want to support that this is a very motive issue where the counties are not remitting statutory deductions, not just statutory deductions, but even loans and even SACCO dues for members. And this is a very big issue. It's a very motive issue in the counties. This non-remittance is accruing a lot of arrears in the counties, and that makes counties to have a lot of pending bills, even to their own staff. I know very well that governors have a lot of money that they are getting from the control of budget in full in terms of personnel emolument. This is a very, it's an issue. It's an issue where we need to know as the Senate, particularly from the committee concerned, that why the control of budget is giving counties a full amount of money in pay personnel emolument, but they don't remit this money to the statutories, to the institutions that are required, like the NHIF, where they don't have the money from the counties, and that makes a triple effect to the employee of the county, where they don't even go to hospital, they don't enjoy the NHIF benefits, and even the statutories like payee, the banks pay the net salaries from the employees of the counties. This is a very emotive issue. We want to support this statement and say that as the committee sits down with the governors, concerns, because I think even to myself also, I'm being affected as a county. And to make the matter worse, we see like counties are even employing more staff to those offices without even following the due process. And that also accumulates arrears within the employees. So I think I do support this, and I want to see the future of this statement as we get the response from the governors. Thank you.
And then two statements which the owners were not allowed, but since we agree this is a week of forgiveness, I give them a chance to give their statements. Senator Kibwana. Senator Kibwana. Later. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, can
Senator
I say something?
Kibwana, I give you the opportunity to give out your statement.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to say something on statutory deductions.
Can you appoint call for appoint when you are working? You know, you must have orders, Senator Kiruri.
Mr. Speaker,
now you raise your finger talking. You start point of order from the highest. What is your point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My point of order is that I have been waiting for my motion very patiently for 3 days. And the order paper keeps changing. People who have been absent when their statement has been called are walking in and asking for leniency. When I've been patiently waiting to actually move the motion on sanitary towels, Mr. Speaker. I am just saying, Mr. Speaker, if we can follow I'm just saying, my point of order is, if we can follow the order paper, Mr. Speaker, if we can follow the order paper, because let's be serious, Mr. Speaker. What is out of order is that
all those issues are in the order paper.
Yes, but Mr. Speaker, when you called upon them, they were absent in the House.
Senator Kibwana.
Point of order.
What is Senator Chute Mohammed?
Mr. Speaker, I also have a similar motion, and I think, Madam, because I think the clerks are following some...
Clerks by the chair. She's challenging the chair.
Yes, that's why she's out of order.
Yes, completely out of order. Senator Kibwana, proceed. Senator Kajwang, you're eating into the next order, which is, you know. Yes. What is it, Senator Kajwang?
Mr. Speaker, you know, it's not always war when we're in the House. But I just wanted to inform Senator Gloria Orwoba of Standing Order number 45 on sequence of proceedings. Mr. Speaker, statements come before motions. So I just wanted to inform her that the proceedings are fairly organized. And Mr. Speaker, you undertook that today you are not starting a fight, and I want to congratulate you for that.
Senator Gloria, you know, Senator Kibwana, can you kindly...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to pursuant Standing Order 531 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources on the steps taken to achieve Kenya's greenhouse gas emission reduction targets to set out in the nationally determined contributions NDCs updated in 2020. In the statement, the committee should table a progress report on the achievements of the greenhouse gas emissions.
Sorry, Senator Kibwana, the statement I have is totally different from what you are in.
I have two statements, Mr. Speaker.
Which ones do you have? Was only one. Yeah? Because you cannot read something that I don't have. Otherwise, you can read some more Kenya in the House.
No, I had to.
The one approved is the influx of Cuban doctors. The other one may be a spending. You can read this one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my statement is on unemployed Kenyan doctors and the influx of Cuban doctors in the healthcare system. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 531 to seek a statement in the Standing Committee on Health on the crisis of unemployed Kenyan doctors and the influx of Cuban doctors in Kenya's healthcare system. In the statement, the committee should state measures, if any, to address the issue of unemployment among Kenyan doctors, giving reasons for the significant number of unemployed doctors, despite the increasing demand for healthcare services. Number two, Mr. Speaker, apprise the Senate on the plans to ensure that Cuban doctors are working in areas where there's a genuine shortage of specialized medical personnel and not displacing unemployed Kenyan doctors. Number three, states efforts in ensuring that Kenyan doctors are provided with the necessary resources and support to improve their skills and remain competitive in the job market. Number four, state measures, if any, by the Ministry of Health to provide opportunities for young doctors to gain the practical experience necessary to the competitive in the job market end. And the last, but not the least, state strategic interventions made by the government to ensure Kenya's healthcare system is sustainable and self-sufficient without doctors from other countries. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Last statement, Senator Tabitha.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding claims of fraudulent activities involving customers' accounts in various Kenyan banks. In the statement, the committee should investigate claims of fraudulent withdrawals of funds from accounts belonging to customers at various Kenyan banks. Explain the measure that they have put in place by various banks adversely mentioned in frauds involving customers' account and the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya to stem such activities that cast aspirations on the bank security system. And outline the actions put in place, if any, by banks where fraud cases have been reported to ensure customers who have lost their monies in such criminal activities have been compensated. Mr. Speaker, I submit, and I would like just to point out that from where I sit, we got evidence.
Senator Mutinda, you have made your statement, unless any other member can be able to
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand guided. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I can't see anybody interested to say something on that. But the last one, let us get the last statement, then I give you. Yeah, the last one, Senator Christo Asige. I'm told you have now the statement in your system. Proceed.
The mic? Oh, thank you. Yes, I do now. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights on the status of implementation of the Legal Aid Act number 6 of 2016. In the statement, the committee should appraise the Senate on the state of implementation of the Act in providing affordable, accessible, sustainable, credible, and accountable legal aid services to individuals in Kenya in accordance with the Constitution since its commencement on the 10th of May 2016, outlining the operations of the legal aid scheme. State the number of cases taken up by the National Legal Aid Service in providing representation of persons granted legal aid under the Act. State efforts undertaken by the office in promoting legal awareness and access to the service in the last 5 years, outlining any challenges encountered. State measures undertaken in supporting the legal services through establishing justice advisory state centers and research. State the amount of public funds allocated to the Legal Aid Fund since its inception, stating how funds allocated have been spent since its inception, and state measures, if any, undertaken in promoting alternative dispute resolution mechanisms to enhance, let me do that again. State measures, if any, in promoting alternative dispute resolution methods that enhance justice in accordance with the Constitution. I thank you.
What you missed is enhanced access to justice. Thank you, Senator Sige. Let us get a few comments from RUTO John Kenywa, Senator Rekipia. Limit yourselves to 1.5 minutes.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza napenda kupongeza Senator Cherargei kwa taarifa aliyoleta katika bunge na kuuliza ya kwamba wakati huu ambapo bado kuna janga la njaa, kuna ukame kila mahali, ilhali Banki Kuu imesema ya kwamba watu wanakapokuwa kutuma pesa wakitumia simu zao za rununu watarejesha yale malipo ambayo walikuwa wakilipa. Bwana Spika, mimi ningependa kuuliza kamiti ambayo imepatiwa fursa hili iangalie mambo hayo kwa kindani, na Wizara ya Fedha waweze kusaidia Wakenya kwa sababu wakati huu bado wako na shida. wako na shida na wangependa kuwa waendelee.
Senator Okech, what is your point of order?
I'm just raising on point of order number 1, on the time you provide for this session. Given that we have had a lot of statements made, Mr. Speaker, that have got very serious concerns, and I've seen you have given my colleague, the good senator of Laikipia, 1.5 minutes, Mr. Speaker. I want to plead to you just to adjust it a little bit upwards so that we can be able to contribute in some of the pertinent issues raised by these statements. I think there are almost 4 statements.
But now you're eating into the good time you are requesting to have.
I yield
Kenyans,
back, Mr. Speaker, if you just consider that time.
Comments.
Thank you.
Asante Jua Kech kwa kusema niongezee muda. Sikutaka kusema kwamba tayari alisema nikiwa hapa, kama ningemwambia niongezee muda kana kwamba ningekuwa nikimuonyesha, kwa sababu nimekaa katika kiti kile na mimi naelewa jukumu alionayo. Kwa hivyo asante, nashukuru Senator Okech. Lakini Bwana Spika, mimi nasema ya kwamba ni vizuri Wizara ya Fedha iangalie hayo mambo kwa kindani na aweze kuambia Banki Kuu ni vizuri hayo malipo yasiweze kurejeshwa, kwa sababu bado yale makali ya ugonjwa wa corona yanaendelea kuadhiri wa Kenya kila mahali. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri kwanza wangoje, wapatie wa Kenya muda, hata kama ni miezi mingine 6 ama mwaka mmoja, waweze kurejelewa na hali yao ya kawaida, Bwana Spika. Kwa sababu kufanya hiyo itakuwa wafanya wa Kenya kuendelea kuadhiriwa na haya makame. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, ningeomba ya kwamba kamati inayoshughulikia ifuatilie hayo mambo kwa kindani. Bwana Spika, kuna taarifa ambayo imeletwa kuhusu vile banki zetu zinavyo wanyanyasa wa Kenya kwa kuingia katika akaunti zetu na kutoa pesa kiholela. Bwana Spika, ni vizuri haya mambo yaangaliwe kabisa. Bwana Spika, unapata ya kwamba mtu katika akaunti yake amewacha akiwa na kiasi fulani cha pesa, alafu wakati anapoenda kutoa, pengine analipa hospitali ama anataka kulipia mtoto shule, anapata pesa tayari zimetolewa, na zimetolewa kwa njia ambayo hafahamu na haielewi. Bwana Spika, kamati yetu ya fedha inapaswa iangalia mambo kwa kindani, na wale ambao watapatikana wamekuwa wakiwalagai wa Kenya kwa njia ile, wachukuliwe hatua za kisheria na waweze kuchukuliwa hatua kali, ili benki zetu zionekane zinafanya kazi ambazo zinapaswa kufanya, kulinda pesa zetu, lakini si kuwalagai na kuibia wa Kenya ambao wana imani na wao. Bwana Spika, kwa hivyo naunga mkono taarifa iliyoletwa na Tabitha, na nataka kusema kamati ambayo najua inashughulikia mambo hayo ikiongozwa na senator wa kutoka Mandera, Bwana Roba, atashughulikia mambo hayo kwa kindani na apeane taarifa ya kutosha, na asiogope mtu yote, banki ziogopwe, waangalie mambo kwa kindani, kwa sababu Wakenya wanalagaiwa, Wakenya wanadhulumiwa. Bwana Spika, ile inanistua ni ya kwamba pesa kidogo ulionayo ukitoa kwa benki, unasikia kwamba kama saa hii Banki Kuu ya Kenya tayari wamerejesha, wanasema wanarejesha yale malipo, tayari unakatwa. Nayo banki, kuna wale ambao ni wakora tayari wameiba katika akaunti yako. Bwana Spika, inashindwa, kwani unaishi katika nchi gani? Kama hautaibiwa na banki, pesa yako itachukuliwa na Banki Kuu ya Kenya. Mtu wa Laikipia, kama hata ule ambaye na mifugo, ameuza mifugo amepeleka kwa banki, kama mifugo haijaibiwa na wakora, Bwana Spika, unapata ataibiwa katika banki. Kama si kwa banki, ni katika ni hii mambo ya kutoa ushuru wakati unatuma na hizi simu zetu. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, unashindwa, ukimbilie benki hapana, ukimbilie simu hapana, ukimbilie nani? Mimi naona kile ambacho kitakachofaa sasa, tutakimbilia kamati ambayo inahusika na tumtegemee Mwenyezi Mungu. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Danson Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, my comment is in reference to the statement by the Honorable Senator who raised the issue of the 4,000 unemployed doctors. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to say 2 very quick things. The first one is that at the continental level, we as a country are encouraging that we have a free movement of labor. And this is the position Kenya is taking at the Continental Parliament, in the Pan-African Parliament. So, Mr. Speaker, it is a very strange thing to hear that the Ministry of Health is telling doctors that they are barred from moving from this country to go and seek employment in other parts of the country or in other parts of the continent or the world. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is where we are going. Kenya is noted as a country that has one thing, which is a big what is it called? A big resource, which is educated population, Mr. Speaker. So we are encouraging the Health Committee to look at this question vis-a-vis continental commitments and international commitments that Kenya has made in terms of encouraging migration of labor. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we want to ask the Health Committee, as is looking at this statement, to also look at the fact that some counties like Tana River County, Mr. Speaker, they do not have sufficient doctors. So how does it come that doctors are unemployed and counties such as Tana River counties remain with insufficient medical employees? So, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, as they are looking at this, question, they will then also need to look at those two issues as they do their investigation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Andy Okech. And will allow me to give two members from this end, and then we make progress.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity, and I rise to make a brief comment on the statement that was issued by the Senator of Marsabit, Senator Chute Mohammed Said. I think that, Mr. Speaker, the issue of statutory deductions in this country is becoming a very serious issue, and it's actually becoming a death sentence to many of Kenyans. Because if you have worked very hard over the course of a month to be able to serve your county in different capacity, Mr. Speaker, and your county is able to pay you your salary at the end of the month, and a simple issue of the county having to deduct your money and remit it to the different statutory deductions that they're supposed to be remitted, Mr. Speaker, it becomes very difficult to fathom why it takes years for that money to be remitted to the relevant funds, Mr. Speaker. We have got situations like, of course, what my brother Chute has talked about here, Senator Chute has talked about here, in Marsabit, which is not dissimilar to places like Migori County, Mr. Speaker, where staff go to hospitals and then you are told your NHIF is not working. Reason being, there was no money that was remitted, Mr. Speaker. And we are ending up sending populations of Kenyans to serious problems. Mr. Speaker, there are families that today are stuck in hospitals because they can't pay their bills. And you can't understand the reason why, after being deducted, you are told that you're not able to pay for your bills. In any case, Mr. Speaker, this also goes to our national strategy for ensuring economic development, Mr. Speaker. Reason being, right now, a worker in Kenya has got almost 5 deductions, Mr. Speaker, that they must make. You have got NHIF, you have got retention fund, you have got payee, you have got NSSF, you have got pension fund, Mr. Speaker. Payee, NSSF, and pension funds alone take up to 57% of a Kenyan salary in this kind of job that we're seeing in the counties, Mr. Speaker. We are going to a dangerous path, Mr. Speaker, that people will now not see their sense of working. Because if you add NHIF and retention funds, over 60% of what Kenyans are earning end up going to deductions, and therefore there's no incentive to work, Mr. Speaker. So I think that as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, this House should consider, even apart from just committing this statement to the relevant committee, I would propose, Mr. Speaker, that my brother, Senator Chute, should actually consider bringing a motion in this House on having serious pensive measures on people who end up not remitting deductions for the people who work for counties and also any other parastatals that you have in the country, Mr. Speaker. And with that, we can be able to allow our people be able to get their right share of what they need to earn in the counties, Mr. Speaker. And I do support Senator Chute passionately about this, and I hope you can bring it as a motion next time, and we'll support you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Last but not the least, Senator Olekina Redamo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a good day that we are dealing with matters that affect our people. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the three statements, and I hope that the Secretariat will be able to extract our comments from the Hansard so that they can be able to follow, now that we have a new system where we are commenting on statements all at once. Mr. Speaker, let me begin with a statement by Senator Tabitha. Mr. Speaker, I would like to request the committee that you've committed this statement on, and I believe that is the finance and budget, to really interrogate this issue of these financial institutions tapping into people's accounts and deducting money. Mr. Speaker, there is a famous case of a young lady who all banks now are afraid of in this country because she took them to court, and the only thing she wanted was to request for her bank statement. If you request for bank statement, Mr. Speaker, particularly if you take a loan, most financial institutions that probably have transferred your loan from one bank to another will hesitate giving you that statement. Recently, Mr. Speaker, I was approached by an MCA, a sitting MCA from Kiambu, who brought in a gentleman who took a loan from one financial institution, and then when he took a loan from that financial institution, the institution is National Bank of Kenya. The manager from that branch, Mr. Speaker, advised him that the best way for him to grow his business is through invoice discounting. From that moment, the gentleman became disillusioned because he didn't know how the interest started accumulating. Whenever he went there and he would say, "Can you give me the amortization table? Let me see how much I've paid you versus how much I need to pay you." The story, Mr. Speaker, will shock you. The gentleman borrowed 26 million. By the end of the day, the banks were discussing on how they can convert the 23 million to a loan of 126 million. This is affecting very many Kenyans. So I would request the committee that will be looking at this matter to be able to summon Kenya Bankers Association, the governor of Central Bank, so that they can be able to go through, and any other Kenyan who is out there who is suffering. Because, Mr. Speaker, the statement that has been brought by Senator Tabitha is a statement that is affecting very many Kenyans. I know I have assisted so many Kenyans renegotiate, restructure their loans from different financial institutions, but this is a matter that this Senate, now that it is seized of that matter, the committee must now take a keen interest and have a serious inquiry, because these are the things that leads to a class action suit on financial institutions. There's a lot of fraud in Kenyan banks, a lot of charges which are charged, and I think it is a high time that we broaden the scope so that we can be able to save Kenyans who are losing a lot of money. Mr. Speaker, on the second statement by Senator Chute. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we had the control of budget in one of our committees. And it shocked us because this issue of pending bills is really a creation of some unscrupulous individuals who sits in the county treasuries, and also, most important, the CEOs of finance in every county government. There is absolutely no reason, Mr. Speaker, as to why counties should be requisitioning money to pay a certain expense but end up diverting money. We looked at Article 207 of the Constitution. We looked at the PFM Act in terms of money being requisitioned from the control of budget. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, this issue, if you look at PFM Act, I believe it's section 103.3, it sets the head of Treasury to be the CEC Finance. But the interpretation, even by the control of budget, is that the CEC Finance is not the head of Treasury, and he needs second approval. So, Mr. Speaker, I would request that the committee which will be looking at this matter invite the control of budget, and this House comes up with a mechanism whereby the control of budget, because Article 207 mandates her to only release money that she feels is going to be used effectively after following the requisition, to ensure that she can come up with an administrative process or procedure so that whenever county government requisition money, they must indicate there that we have requisition money to pay NHIF, to pay NSSF, to pay all these other retirement benefits. Because it is sad that Kenyans go to hospitals, they cannot be treated because their NHIF card is not working, yet that money was deducted. It is even in their payslip. It shows that that money has been deducted. And Mr. Speaker, this is not only affecting county governments, even here in the Senate. You know, by the time we get our own money for our staff, sometimes we get letters from KRA saying these statutory reductions have not been remitted, you have to pay a penalty. Sometimes we go into our own pocket to pay for our staff NHIF, or we prepay in advance so that if any of our staff who are working so hard for us fall sick, they can be treated. So we need to be proactive, and I would request that Senator Chute, you push Senator Ali Roba, have a discussion, see how administratively the controller budget can ensure that any requisition, before she approves the second requisition, for requisition of salary, county government must demonstrate that they have actually paid these statutory bodies. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on the other statement by my good sister, Senator Hamida, the issue of doctors and the issue of healthcare in this country is something which we must all look at on a very serious note. I want to inform all our colleagues that I sit in the Health Committee. And when we are looking at the budget policy statement, some of the direction that the government wants to take us leads to clawing back on devolved functions. Health is devolved. Health being devolved, it is a shame, Mr. Speaker, that majority of money, in fact, if you look at the budget, which is held by the Ministry of Health, it is equivalent to shareable revenue for about 5 counties. The direction that we are taking on, Mr. Speaker, now, where the Treasury is proposing to do the following things. One, to hire community health workers. Number 2, to set up a commission similar to the one of teachers, is something which is going to claw back, and in most cases, our doctors, our kids will not continue being employed. I think what we ought to do, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that the committee can explore this, is where we as a Senate, we push for more money to go to the health, to the counties, and mandate county governments to give us a list of all the doctors that they have hired. We work with our institutions, because we are now getting doctors from Cuba. I don't have a problem with getting expertise. But where are we getting doctors from Cuba, yet our own sons and daughters are unemployed? If we look at this issue of the health devolved function, and we push this government to ensure that more money goes to counties, more money is allocated, and each of the county allocates about, at a minimum, 30% of their budget to the health, item or docket, we can be able to hire more teachers, more doctors. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you. I know I'm short of time, but I hope that this item will be able to assist this country.
Okay. Next, last statement by the majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, before I before I give my statement, Mr. Speaker, you know I'm laughing because it's my birthday, and the senator for Migori has gifted me 100 shillings and told me, please go and have tea. So I'd wish to appreciate his kind gesture, Mr. Speaker. It's not the amount, it is the act and the thought that matters. I've never, Mr. Speaker, in my entire life in Parliament, Ledama has never bought me anything. It was not your money. So, Mr. Speaker, before I make my statement, there's only one thing that I want to speak about, the statement by my very good friend, Senator Hamida Kibwana, on this issue of health. And I heard the comments of my good friend, Senator Ledama. I hear you, Senator Ledama, and the concerns that we keep on raising about the health sector in our counties and how health is handled. And I know we need to pump lots of money to our counties, especially on the health function. But, Mr. Speaker, we must also ask very difficult questions. Is it possible, Mr. Speaker, that perhaps we missed a step? Thank you. Is it possible, Mr. Speaker, that we missed a step when we allowed teachers to keep their entire human resource and their practice held under the national function in TSC, such that their promotional standards are similar, they can be moved across the country, and they are at least assured of a pay? The sad reality, Senator Ledama, if you speak to doctors in your county, in all our counties, is that you can imagine the best of brains that we have in our country sometimes go for 2, 3, 4 months without pay. Because of this, the rise and fall of how our county governments continue to operate. And even to do just a simple matter as a transfer. I spoke to a friend of mine recently who's a doctor and transferred from one particular...
Just a minute, Majority Leader. I was an issue Senator wants to inform you on something.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on this matter of doctors and salaries and human resources at the county, Mr. Speaker, I think there is something that probably has not come out very clearly. The payment of salaries in counties is not a favor to doctors or any other civil servant. The fact of the matter is this: whenever salaries delay in counties, it delays for the entire county public service staff, including doctors, drivers, agriculture officers, planners, and all the staff employed in the county. And the delay is not of the making of county governments, Mr. Speaker. I think there's something that we really have. And I think as a Senate has tried to crack the matter of timely releases. But because of the mischief in Treasury, Central Bank, and control of budget, we have had a difficulty in that matter. Mr. Speaker, this matter of health, human resource management at the counties is a matter we want to have a very serious conversation so that this matter can be addressed once and for all.
Do you want to inform
I wanted to inform the majority leader that the delay of salary payments in counties is not only for doctors. When there is a delay, it is for the entire county public service staff. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, thank you.
The chairman of Health Committee for that information. I was under no illusion that this is of the making of counties. But maybe he missed a part where I introduced this conversation from Mr. Speaker and asked if by doctors not being not having, remember there has been conversation about National Health Service Unit or, and things like that, that teachers, for example, continue to enjoy better treatment, at least in terms of their promotion, uniformity of service. They're able to move from one county to the other. They have timely receiving of salaries, Mr. Speaker, unlike our doctors. I was just drawing a parallel. In fact, I wanted to give the Senator Mandago, who I agree with on most of the things that he said, a challenge. When doctors transfer from one county to the other, that is where most of the time hell begins from them. I know a case of a doctor, a friend of mine who spoke to me recently and pointed out to me that when they moved their services from Elgeyo Marakwet County to Bomet County, for the last almost 4 or 5 months, they have been just trying to get their, that unique number for public servants. I think it's called the IDDP number, IPPD, transferred from one county to the other. And now you can imagine the form and shape of our doctors. Most of them are not in the form of activists, that they know how to push and chase things around. When they are professionally told that, wait, it's being handled, many of them will dutifully execute their job. But you can imagine what it means to stay for 3, 4, 5 months without pay. At least in the non-skilled labor sector, they don't have many of these particular challenges. That's why I picked on the one for doctors specifically. And it's a conversation which I want maybe him as a chair of the challenge that I want to give Senator Mandago as a chair of health, based on his experience as a county governor for 2 terms. I think he best suits and will be of greater value to us as Senate, if at least he's able then to crack for us the issue of transfer of service for doctors, not losing their benefits, ensure that when they are being promoted, they are treated and paid equally across, and all these challenges that doctors keep on raising with us when you meet them across. So it's a challenge that we need to speak about. So Senator Amida, thank you for bringing this to the Senate. I hope you will follow up with the committee and get good answers. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move on to... Oh, thank you. This is... but you have not given me the PIN. She has given me her ATM, Mr. Speaker, but no PIN. Senator Ledama gave me 1,000 shillings, Mr. Speaker, but I want to spend it first before I say thanks, because I'm not very sure it is a legitimate banknote. At least for Eddie, it is a M-Pesa, you know. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 57-1. I hereby present to the business of the Senate for the week commencing Tuesday, the 28th of February, 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, on Tuesday, 28th February, 2023, the Senate Business Committee will consider and approve business for the day. This is projected to contain business that will not be concluded from today's order paper and any other business scheduled by the Senate Business Committee. Of note is a consideration of the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the budget policy statement and the report of the Standing Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs and Human Rights on the nominee for the appointment of the position of non-member of Parliament Commissioner to PSC. I think the deadline is next week, Tuesday. So members of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee need to conclude on that business, Mr. Speaker. I urge the 2 select committees to consider these matters within the stipulated timelines and table reports thereon by Tuesday, the 28th of February, 2023. The order paper for Wednesday, 1st March 2023, and for Thursday, 2nd March 2023, will contain business that will not be concluded on Tuesday, 28th Feb 2023, and Wednesday, 1st of March 2023, respectively, as well as petitions, statements, and any other business scheduled by the SBC. Mr. Speaker, sir, in terms of legislative business, 13 bills are awaiting the second reading stage. 4 of these bills are scheduled in today's order paper, order number 9, 10, 11, and 12. Further, 3 bills are undergoing concurrence as contemplated under Article 110(3) of the Constitution. I urge the respective movers to be available in the chamber to move these bills for a smooth transition to the next stage. Aside from that, the business listed in the order paper for today and the one stated earlier for Tuesday, 28th February 2023, my office is following up on the Joint Committee report on Standing Committee on Finance and Budget of the Senate and the Departmental Committee on Finance Planning and Trade of the National Assembly on the nominee of appointment to the position of Deputy Governor of Central Bank of Kenya. I take this opportunity to request the select committees to consider the matter within the stipulated timelines. Mr. Speaker, I must make a comment here that many of our committees seem not aware that under our own legislative provisions, parliamentary vetting policy and the rest, I'm seeing many of our committees pushing vetting and the approval of certain reports, Mr. Speaker, to the last day, which is not a very good way of working, Mr. Speaker. I hope many of our committees can be guided by their clerks and the technical office that is here, so that at least if you're supposed to do a vetting and complete the report, don't wait until the 14th day is when you're doing public hearings and you want members to read the report and members to approve on that particular day. It doesn't give a very good show for us. I hope the committee chairpersons that are here and members of Secretariat who are assisting our committees can help actually us out of that behavior that I see creeping into the Senate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, members of the public continue to show confidence in the Senate by submitting petitions on diverse matters. Presently, there are 4 petitions before the Senate. One referred to the Standing Committee on Roads and Transport, Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights, and 2 committed to the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. Appreciating that petitions are of great importance to the people and they give the Senate a basis for undertaking its constitutional roles, we must resist the temptation of converting petitions to full-blown inquiries that run for months on end. Mr. Speaker, and this is a very important point as well, that I want to urge colleague senators and chairpersons of the various committees that have petitions before them. Petitions is just to remind you or bring to your attention that there is a particular issue that as a Senate you need to look into. Many of the time, matters that are brought before us, it will need either the assistance of investigative agencies and such matters, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I wish to challenge chairpersons and members of the various committees. 60 days as provided for by the standing orders is 60 days. I hope we can get to a point where when a Kenyan submits their petition before the Senate, that they know that in 60 days' time, a maximum of 60 days, they'll have a report before them and something to consider. I therefore urge committees to consider these petitions. I also urge the liaison committee to take action on this matter where standing committees exceed stipulated timelines. I've said this on petitions, I've said this on public vetting as well, Mr. Speaker. With respect to statements, there have been numerous statements sought pursuant to Standing Order number 53 and a good number committed to committees for consideration pursuant to Standing Order number 52.3. I continue to urge respective committees to expedite the consideration of statements and tabled reports pursuant to the standing orders. Number 10, Mr. Speaker, over and above the statements and petitions under consideration, which have highlighted a number of issues affecting our constituents, I encourage senators and respective standing committees to identify and come up with the legislative interventions that will be converted into bills. On statements, Mr. Speaker, there's a comment that I'd wish to make, and I wish I could say this when we have majority of the senators. We are sworn in as, yes, we represent specific constituencies, but many times I see statements be presented before us that are of an extremely narrow nature, narrow in the sense that even on a problem that affects the entire country, a senator is only interested in saying, please let me have the answers only for a particular county. I think because this is the upper house, Mr. Speaker, on many occasions, actually we have sworn to defend and protect the Constitution. We are senators of the Republic of Kenya. If you're presenting before the Senate a particular statement, Mr. Speaker, and you know that that particular problem or challenge that you want addressed affects more than one county, Mr. Speaker, there is no harm in seeking for the statement and perhaps drafting it in a better way that reflects your standing as a senator of the Republic of Kenya, as opposed to a particular county and saying, oh, I wish to know there's a chief in a particular region. You know, Mr. Speaker, we are slowly moving out of that habit. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I do recall that back in the day, in my very first days in the Senate, statements have really evolved. It was not unusual to find statements on people wanting a chief transferred a sub-location which has done this or the other. You still find occasionally one or two members who would make that request, unless the matter is of great national importance and you feel that in your own way you cannot address it as a senator. That's a point that you bring a local matter to the floor of a Senate. Otherwise, most of the time, we borrow from the challenges that are in our specific county, but seek a solution that will solve the problem across the country. That's the attitude which I wish to request colleague senators to adopt, Mr. Speaker. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to request for patience and understanding of all senators and the country as the Senate leadership engages to resolve on the matter of change in the minority party leadership. Let us look beyond our differences in service to the people of Kenya. I hope we can quickly put this matter to rest as we agreed during the leaders' meeting that we had this morning, Mr. Speaker. I thank you and hereby lay the statement of the table on the table of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Majority Leader. All the statements that came under standing order 53-1 stands committed to the respective standing committees of the Senate. Next order.
Order number 9, the County Vocational Education and Training Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2022, second reading.
Is the move of the motion around? Senator Moses Kajwang? Sorry? Okay. He is not around, so we defer that motion to the next sitting. Next order.
Order number 10, the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2022, second reading.
Senator Danson Mungatana, are you ready?
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to move this bill and have it read second reading. Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2022, seeks in the memorandum of that bill to achieve certain goals. Mr. Speaker, just so that honorable senators who are following from inside and outside the chamber can understand.
Sorry, Senator Mungatana, you start that you seek to move the second reading.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I thought I did that.
Can you?
But I can do again. Mr. Speaker, I wish to move for second reading
the
Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2022. I did say that, Mr. Speaker.
You did. It's okay.
I think some of these people are not listening and misleading the chair. He had me, yes.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to lay the foundation why we needed to have this bill and amend the Powers and Privileges Act so that those colleagues of mine who are following this debate from inside and outside the House can follow. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to enhance the powers that Senate has over its decisions, over its resolutions, as opposed to the powers that Senate has over its decisions which are passed into law. Mr. Speaker, all the Constitution, what has been happening with all bills. We do a first reading, we then do a second reading, we do a third reading, and then, Mr. Speaker, it is taken to the president and it becomes law. Once it is assented by the president, civil servants, members of the executive, they all take this attitude, Mr. Speaker, that a law is a law and it is binding. So a law always has consequences. If you don't do this, then this will happen to you. If you are a member of the executive or you are a civil servant that supports the execution of the laws that we have passed in this Senate, ordinarily, Mr. Speaker, they have a fear of the compulsion of the law that we pass here. Mr. Speaker, when we come to decisions of this House through motions, Mr. Speaker, as opposed to decisions of this House through bills, the attitude is different. When the Senate pronounces itself here, and not only the Senate, Mr. Speaker, even the National Assembly, when they pass a motion, the attitude of the executive is that that is merely persuasive. It does not have compulsion of the law. So what has happened is, senators here, Mr. Speaker, they debate, they come to an agreement as a House that this is the decision, this is the resolution of the House. All of us, we agree as a Senate that this motion be passed. But Mr. Speaker, after that, the process that happens is that the clerk of the Senate would ordinarily then write to the relevant department of the government to inform them that there is a decision by the Senate, there is a resolution by the Senate that this and this be done as far as a motion is concerned. So, Mr. Speaker, there are various motions that we have passed, and I have also moved a motion here in this House, in this session, and we've been able to pass it. The clerk has followed up with the necessary action. But, Mr. Speaker, the attitude of the civil service, the attitude of the executive has been and continues to be that if it is a motion that is passed by the House, it is not compulsory to follow it. It's a persuasion, maybe a strong persuasion. So, Mr. Speaker, what this bill seeks to change is that attitude. Mr. Speaker, I've had the fortune of serving in the executive, and I know from experience what I'm talking about. That when Parliament has passed a law and it has been assented by the President, we take it very seriously. We used to take it very seriously, and that attitude continues. But, Mr. Speaker, when Parliament passes a motion, we merely note it and say that it's a strong persuasion from the floor of the House, but it has no compulsion. It has no binding power. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to change by introducing a law that will make it now compulsory for members of the executive and generally civil service that, Mr. Speaker, when a resolution of the House is passed here, then it must be implemented. Mr. Speaker, we have created a mechanism under this bill of timely feedback on the resolutions that are passed by this House. Mr. Speaker, the clerk of the Senate is now required, when we make this to be law, when we pass this to be law, to write to the relevant government department within a time limit of 7 days to inform them that the House has passed this resolution and it is upon these government officers to execute that resolution. Mr. Speaker, this bill, it therefore creates a timely feedback mechanisms for the resolution of Parliament or of the Senate when we pass it here. Mr. Speaker, then what happens? The person, the office of the clerk, will identify somebody in this bill who is named as a responsible officer. That responsible officer will be required to take action on the resolution that has been passed by this Senate within 60 days. Mr. Speaker, you can see that this bill is good because it is enhancing the role of the Senate. It is enhancing what Senate can do. It is also creating consequences for those who will fail to carry out and execute the resolutions of the House through motions. Mr. Speaker, what is the consequence of a responsible officer who fails to effect the resolutions? Mr. Speaker, normally what has been happening is that we have been condemning, we have been taking a dim light view of those people who are supposed to give effect to resolutions of this House. But Mr. Speaker, if it is a motion and there are no consequences, what happens is beyond the condemnations that we make, it just lapses into no effect. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill is trying to correct that, is trying to correct and to therefore make effective the resolutions of this House. It is trying to fight for our space within the power structure so that instead of bringing a bill, and everybody knows how these processes of a bill are, they are long. You have to have a first reading. Mr. Speaker, you have to go and face the committee. You have to explain to them. The committee then will have 60 days to do a report, and then they will have to table the report. Mr. Speaker, then you have to move the bill, and then that bill will have to be debated, Mr. Speaker. When that bill is debated, it has to come back again for third reading, Mr. Speaker, and amendments are brought. So it's a long process. But sometimes it is so urgent to have a resolution of this House, and we cannot take that long when we are doing a motion. A motion will be speaking to an issue, a specific issue, and once the House has resolved that issue, then it will be now mandatory within the time limitations that we have created in this bill to make sure that that bill is given effect. Now, the attitude that, oh, that's just a motion by the House, that is just a persuasion, will come to an end. Responsible officers will face consequences, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what are the consequences that we are proposing in this bill? The consequences are that if a resolution of this House has been made, and we have said, for example, I have seen a bill here for provision for institution of measures to curb incessant high electricity costs, which is pending, that is being brought by the Honorable Senator Chute. Mr. Speaker, once we pass this bill and this law now is effective, it will mean that the responsible officers will have to effect what the resolution of this House is saying. And they have 60 days to do that. And if they don't bring a status report to show that this is how far we have gone in terms of compliance with the direction of the Senate, then, Mr. Speaker, if they don't do that, the responsible officer will be liable to paying a fine of 500,000 shillings, Kenya shillings, or in default, he will be liable, she will be liable to paying to a 6 months jail term. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill, Mr. Speaker, is as short as that. We are imposing statutory obligations on officers of government so that they can do what they need to do, as is the case, as is the intention of this House. Mr. Speaker, Going forward, it would mean that from now on, these people in government, sitting in the executive, they will be taking an interest on what motions have been placed on the order paper. They'll be taking an interest in the debates of the motions in this House. They will be taking an interest in everything that is happening here, so that if it is a motion that is touching on their department, Mr. Speaker, they will be able to execute these motions. We are going to move away from the old era where, Mr. Speaker, people used to just say motions are but persuasions of the House, but we will be waiting for the law. In fact, Mr. Speaker, in those olden days, when we were a bit younger and in the other House, when we move motions and we pass them, and we go to have them executed by departments of government, they will tell them, we will start, we will try, but why don't you bring a law? So it used to be the habit that you pass a motion and then you start the process of creating an amendment to the law or bringing a fresh bill, which was very tiring and very time-consuming. Mr. Speaker, what we are saying is that with this bill coming into law, this is going to change the way we are moving in this House. Mr. Speaker, Clause 4 of this amendment is proposing to insert a new part called Clause 4A to the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act to provide for reports on action taken on parliamentary resolutions. So, Mr. Speaker, Clause 4 captures what I've been talking about. It goes on to define who is a responsible officer and to whom, as I've said, a resolution of this House is directed at. Mr. Speaker, the new part 4A will mandate the clerk to move within 7 days